The beginning of another. Then part 20. You can have nothing. If you got his spirit, you got it all. Take everything I own. If I got eternal life, what have I really lost? Hey, they say he's knocking at the door. Is that Messiah? I left it open. Yeah, my savior, my shepherd. I follow you wherever. I'm with you. Where we going? To the kingdom. You can have it all. But without you, I'm nothing. Nothing. Fortune and fame, the pride of life, it's all vain. It's all vain. Nothing could change my mind. Nothing. I'm fully convinced. And now it all makes sense. Without you, I'm incomplete. A glass made of diamonds, the glass is empty. A man walked past and bumped it accidentally. It hit the ground and turned to dust. What is it worth? Don't let them break your spirit. The Father put this passion in me. Cleanse me with your living water. This rag is filthy. Storms come and go. They gotta pass eventually. Watch the sun shine on that seed you sowing. Embrace it. The water's needed to keep you growing. The Father working in our favor. We don't even know it. But your enemies know it. The demons see you glowing. Keep my grass cut real low. So if you a snake and try to hide it, it's gonna still show. This what we built for. Without the Father, we incomplete. Yes. Every treasure you can think of, can it give you peace? Is that a gold chain or a mental leash? Meant to weigh you down from the heights you was meant to reach. You could have it all. But without you, I'm nothing. Fortune and fame, the pride of life, it's all vain. It's all vain. Nothing could change my mind. I'm fully convinced. And now it all makes sense. Without you, I'm incomplete. Hey, there's beauty in a broken vessel. Yeah. Exterior flawed, but your soul is special. Yeah. Some doors he left closed for your own protection. Some doors he opened wide, though they don't respect you. Cause you lack worldly possessions and earthly obsessions. His grace and his mercy is precious. Your treasure's in heaven. He'll return the investment. He keep blessing us, though we not worthy of blessings. Looked in the mirror and learned me a lesson. The flesh is my biggest threat. The heart is deceitfully wicked. He's at the door, don't be asleep when he visit. Encourage your neighbor, seek him each minute. Thoughts of a king, he said, one day I'ma leave this mortal body. And when I do, it won't be a need for these riches. True. The Father been feeding me wisdom. I find peace in these scriptures. I read them and see them as pictures. And I'm in awe. Hey, but without you, I'm nothing. It's nothing. Fortune and fame, the pride of life, it's all vain. It's all vain. Nothing could change my mind. I'm fully convinced. And now it all makes sense. Without you, I'm incomplete. Yeah. Fed part 20. I want to thank all of y'all for supporting. Rest in peace, Jackie White, William Hawker. If my mother and father could see this. It's crazy.
Okay. Welcome to week 4 of our podcast of No Longer Vain, or of this series, should I say, of the approved series. I'm gonna let a few people get in, but hopefully you enjoyed the music coming into this. It's an artist by the name of Daraki Bar, and give shout outs to him, and definitely thank him. He gave permission for me to share his music as, I guess give a little notability to his ministry, as he allows me to share his music, as well as
the faith as small as a mustard.
As I'm sharing the word of the Most High, he gave me the permission to also share his music. So, but Daraki Bar, awesome artist. If you have a chance to check him out, go ahead and follow him on YouTube. Spelled Darakibar, Iraq Ibar. So just hopefully you can be blessed by him in the way that I have before. That song was actually now I gotta go check it out again. Um, it was that the one Renew Your Strength? Give me just a second here. Said you want to know the name of the song. Oh, I gotta go find it again. I think that one was Renew Your Strength. If at the very least, if I can't find that one again, we'll go. I'll follow back up in the comments in that one right there. So second, but I don't know if that's one of his new ones or one of his older ones. But either way it goes, that was a good one. So, but I agree. All right, yeah. That being said, yeah, this is week 4 of. Well, first of all, can you hear me? Let's start with that. If you can hear me, if you can give me a 1 in the chat. So let's start with that because I don't want to get going and people can't hear what I'm saying. So if you can hear me, if you can give me a 1 in the chat. Thank you. There we go. Perfect. Okay, perfect. So this is week 1 or week 4 of our study. This week is going to be going from Genesis chapter 30 up to Genesis chapter 47. And so this is kind of the subject of this week. And the timeline is kind of coming off of where we ended last week, which was the um, kind of the beginning of Jacob's life up until he fled to uh, his uncle's house, Laban, to the home of his uncle Laban. So we're picking up there. He married Rachel, and so we're picking up there, and we will continue on through his life up until the point to where he until he and his family made it to Egypt. So to be honest, there's something that I have to realize is not everybody, I guess, understands some of the context with things. But that's also part of the reason for this study is so that people can actually um, pick up on well, really get that context and that background. So let's go ahead and pick up chapter 30. So um, chapter 30 of the chronological series. Again, this is week 4. In week 1, or the very first video of this study, we got into um, the tools that we're using, the YouVersion Bible app, the chronological study within that app. And so, if you go onto my channel, look at playlists, you'll be able to find this one. Again, it's called Approved, and it goes in chronological order of the videos. And the very first one will get a lot more of those details, and also a listed part of those in the description of the video as well. So let's go ahead and before we really dive into it, let's go ahead and start with a word of prayer going to the Most High. Abba Yah, um, Abba Yah, I thank you for first of all for who you are, and I thank you for all that you've done and all that you're doing. And first of all, I don't deserve everything that you have for me, but I ask that you use me today to speak to your people. I ask that you use me today to share your word, and whatever you have, whatever my agenda, whatever my plan for the day is, I put it aside for your will. And I thank you in advance for what you have in store. And I love you, and I give you all the glory and all the honor and all the praise in the mighty name of your Son, Yahushua Hamashiach. Hallelujah. Okay. Okay. So let's go ahead and get going. So really quick, let me just make sure that you're seeing the correct thing. Are you seeing, because my screen is actually not showing correctly, are you showing, are you guys still seeing the video? I want to make sure that things are showing correctly on your end as well. So, because my playback is not showing correctly, so a few technical difficulties. So, okay, there we go. That looks better. Okay, so again, this is me. This is a 100% me. This is my. This is I don't have a producer. I don't have a lot of things that some YouTubers might have, and for the most part, a lot of my videos are live. So, you get the mistakes, you get the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, with that, let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 30. Um, Let me pull up on my screen. Let's get to his word. Here we are. So we're in the book of Genesis, chapter 30, using the Blue Letter Bible. And start out at verse 1. And when Rachel saw that she bare no children, Rachel envied her sister and said unto Jacob, give me children or else I die. And Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, am I in God's stead or Yah's stead? Who hath withheld thee the fruit of the womb? And she said, behold, my maid Bilhah, go into her, and she shall bear upon my knees, that I may also have children with her. And so again, this is picking up um, on last week's reading. So with last week, we had seen that Rachel, Yaakov or Jacob's wife, um, had bore multiple children up to this point, and ergo, where Rachel's envy was. So you had one sister slash one wife of Yaakov, or Jacob. So when I say Yaakov, that's what I'm referring to as Jacob. But one wife of him that was able to bear children, and now the one who he loved the most has yet to bear children. So basically, in envy, and you see this actually through the generations, because that envy was also there um, with Sarah, Abraham's wife as well, and now you're seeing this something similar with Rachel. So it was a big deal in those days for women to have children, and if you didn't, it was almost seen as shameful. And so, ergo, how you see a lot of this envy in the times that they're not bearing children. And um, so at this point, um, Jacob had spent a lot of time with Laban, well over 14 years, because you remember he spent, going back to last week, he spent seven years of his life to earn Rachel, and he was deceived by Laban, and he said, hey, you work another 7 years for me, um, I'll give you, or well, he deceived him and gave him Leah as a wife. So he tricked him the night of the marriage, and he realized that he was actually with Leah, not Rachel. So, and then so Laban tricked him into working another 7 years. He's like, okay, well, if you want Rachel, work another 7 years for me. So that equals up to 14 years. So he had spent a large percentage of his life with Laban, just literally just trying to get Rachel. So again, the wife that he loves. Um, so scroll down to verse 26. So at this point, Jacob had done a bunch of stuff. And to be honest, Laban didn't want to get rid of him because it's like or really let him go because at this point, you know, with Jacob being there and the Most High prospering him, well, with him being there, that means Laban was prospering as well. So as Jacob's riches grew, so did Laban's. And so that being said, you get to verse 26. He said, um, give me my wives and my children for whom I have served thee, and let me go, for thou knowest my service which I have done thee. And Laban said unto him, if I have found favor in thine eyes, tarry, for I have learned by the experience of Yahuwah, or that Yahuwah has blessed me for thy sake. And he said, appoint me thy wages, and I will give it. And he said unto him, thou knowest how I have served thee, and how thy cattle was with me. For it was little thou hadst before I came, and it is now increased unto a multitude, and Yahuwah hath blessed thee since my coming. And now, when shall I provide for mine own house also? And he said, what shall I give thee? And Yaakov said, thou shalt not give me anything. If thou wilt do this thing for me, I will feed and keep thy flock. And so again, so this is you know, Laban, and and you know what, I wasn't scrolling down as I was reading because I was actually reading it off of my phone as well. I have some highlights here, so I apologize as I wasn't keeping up with stuff. But that being said, he's like, hey, um, just give me the stuff I earned. Let me um let me take what I've earned and go. And so Laban's like, hey, I'll pay you anything to stay. It's like what do you want? He's like, hey, really, I just want what what I worked for, and I want to take my family and now start paying now start providing for my family. Now, at this point, he had um, Laban said, "Is like, hey, how about you take care of my flocks and so on and so forth." And here's where we are. He's like, and Yaakov separated the land and set the faces of the flocks towards the rings. Sorry to pronounce that. He says toward the ring straight and the brown. Excuse me, and the brown flock of Laban. Excuse me, and he put his own flocks by themselves and put them not into Laban's cattle. And when it came to pass, uh, whensoever the stronger cattle did conceive, that Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle and the the gutters, and that they might conceive along the rods. But when the cattle were feeble, he would put them not in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger were Yaakov's or Jacob's. And the man increased exceedingly, and had much cattle, and maid servants, and men servants, and camels, and asses. So basically, basically, Jacob, what he was doing was prospering. He's like, and inevitably, he was growing his wealth through this stuff. And so, but at this point, he had worked for Laban for long enough, and so he realized that if he went to Laban again, Laban was just going to try to keep and was just going to try to keep him there. So, in chapter 31, verse 1, he said, and um, and at this point, the Laban's sons were also grumbling against him. And here's what it says. It says, and he heard the words of Laban's sons, saying, Jacob has taken away all that was our father's, and of that was our father's, he hath gotten his glory. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. And so basically, he realized that he was falling out of favor with Laban. And so So here we go at verse 3 said, and Yahuwah said unto Yaakov, return unto the land of thy fathers and to thy kindred, and I will be with it. And so verse 5 he said, and said unto them, I see your father's countenance that is not towards me as before, but but the Elohiym of my fathers has been with me. And so he inevitably told them to take what they had, and we about to go. And so actually here we go. Actually verse 7, another piece right here. He said, and your father hath deceived me and changed my wages 10 times, but Yahuwah suffered him not to hurt me. And here we go. And long story short, Laban was at this point, not only was he profiting off of him, but he was cheating him. And that's where he's saying, he's like, he would agree to one thing and continuously change his wages. So now as we go down, where are we at? Oh, here we are. He was given this is a dream that he had. Um, I'm gonna skip the dream for now, but there's again, this is a read along, so hopefully you haven't or hopefully you have read up to this point. If you haven't, hopefully you get the opportunity to. That is really the whole point of this series, is really for me to summarize things that you have already read. But I would do the best as I can to try to bring context into it. So starting at verse 17 in this chapter, here we are. Okay, then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives upon the camels, and he carried away all his cattle and all his goods, which he had gotten which he had gotten, and the cattle of his getting, which he had gotten in Padan Aram, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. And Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's. Okay, so so as they left, Rachel actually stole um, idols that her father had. So there's additional context to this, but um, that's one of the things I'm not going to get into, because there's some other books that actually um, give a little bit more clarity as to why she stole them. But um, and so as it says, and Jacob stole away unawares to Laban in the Syrian, in that he did not, or that he told him not, that he fled. So inevitably, he left behind Laban's bag again, because as we know, or as was talked about before, he knew that Laban was going to try to keep him there had he not. And but at this point, he took everything that he had, but then also his idols had been stolen. Now, what he decided to do, he actually took off after Jacob. But on his way there, the Most High, Yahuwah, came unto Laban in a dream by night and said, take heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. And so by the time he had gotten to Jacob, he said, um, he's like, he said, and Laban said to Jacob, what hast thou done? And that thou hast stolen away unawares to me, and carried away my daughters as captives with the sword. Wherefore didst thou flee away secretly and steal away from me? And didst thou not, and didst thou not tell me, that I may have sent thee away with mirth and songs and tabret and harp? Well, look at this. I mean, again, as we saw before, I mean, Jacob tried to get away. I mean, he literally asked Laban multiple times. He's like, "Hey, can I just go away with my people?" And now, and Laban kept trying to keep him there. And of course, now he's saying, like, "Hey, if you would have just told me you were leaving, I could have sent you away. I could have sent you away with, you know, uh, with glory, as if that was really his intent." But yeah, so he's trying to make more of it than actually was, and so, um, and in verse 30 now, here's one thing he said. And now thou wouldest needs be gone, because thou sore longest after thy father's house, yet there wherefore hast thou stolen my gods, or my Elohims. And so again, at this point, Jacob didn't know that Rachel had stolen her father's gods. Okay, and so here we go. And Jacob answered to Laban, because I was afraid, and for I said, peradventure thou wouldst take by force thy daughters from me. And so, but here's what he says. It's like, with whomsoever thou findest thy gods, let him not live before our brethren. Discern, or excuse me, let him not live. And then he said, before our brethren, discern thou what is thine with me, and take it to thee. For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen them. And so basically Laban went from tent to tent and wasn't able to find it. And then he gets to um, Rachel's tent, and basically what Rachel did is she put them in her camel, or in her camel's furniture, the thing that she sat on, and hid them there. And basically what she said is, um, here she verse 35, it says, "Let it not displease my lord." Um, that, and again, like I said last week, this whole word of for Lord, this word for Lord is Adonai, or Adon. So let's hit that up again, because I'll touch on that real quick. So understanding, so Adon, so which just means master. So understanding, when you hear or see the word Lord, it does not always mean, it's not always referring to a god or an Elohim. So again, two different words. Elohim is in reference um, to a deity, and so when she's saying to my Lord, she's just referring to master. That's what she's saying, and of course, this being her father, and that's what she means. So let it not displease my Adonai, that I raise up before thee, for the customs of the women is upon me. And he searched but found not the images. And inevitably, what she was saying is, she was on her monthly cycle, and so it was, inevitably her saying, she's like, "Hey, I'd rather not get up, because this is going on." And so that being said, Laban left her alone, and didn't find it. But this being said, so after he didn't find it, again not knowing that it still was there, Jacob was wroth and chode with Laban, and answered and said to Laban, "What is my trespass? What is my sin, that thou hast hotly pursued after me? You have searched all my stuff. What hast thou found of all my household stuff? Set it here before me, brethren, and thy brethren, that that they may judge betwixt us both." And he said, "Hey, 20 years I've been with you. Thy eyes, thy ewes and thy she goats have not cast their young, and the rams of thy, or excuse me, and the rams of thy flock not eaten. Have I not eaten?" And so basically, what he's saying is like, "Hey, um, I never did you wrong in the time that I was there. I was there for 20 years." So, and again, um, that's another piece. He was there for 20 years. Obviously, 14 to pay, for, in reality, 14 for Rachel, who he'd agreed for, It was supposed to be 7 for her, but then that 7 turned into 14 years. And but yes, and so but then an additional 6 after that, in which Laban inevitably wouldn't let him go for what he had agreed. And so ergo what we have. Um so we are uh verse let's see. 43. So 43, he actually sets a covenant between him and Jacob. Here he says, okay, and Laban answered and said unto Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, these children are my children, these cattle are my cattle, and now and all that thou seest is mine. And what can I do this day unto these my daughters, or unto the children with which they have born? Now therefore let's come now and let us make a covenant between, or excuse me, let us make a covenant, and I and thou, and let it be for a witness between me and thee. And verse 45, um, Jacob took a stone and set it for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brethren, gather stones, and they took stones and made a heap, and they did eat there upon the heap, and called it that word, Jagar Sahadutha, but Jacob called it Galid. And Laban said, this heap is a witness between me and thee this day. Therefore, the name of it was called Galid. And so basically, um, inevitably, they made a covenant, inevitably, of peace between each other. So now, fast forward. So inevitably, that's how he got out of Laban's house. At that point, they made a covenant with each other. So now you fast forward. Now, if you remember from last week, when he left home, uh, he left there for a reason. Okay. Um, it was in fear of his brother Esau. His brother Esau was ticked at him because, for one, he had he sold his birthright, but he was tricked out of his blessing, and so Esau had pretty much vowed to kill to kill Yaakov, to kill Jacob, and so um, that being said, um, oops, sorry. As we pick up at chapter 32, that's where we're at. And so, and Jacob went on his way, and the angels of Yah met with him, or met him. And Jacob saw them and said, this is Yah's host. And he called the name of that place Mahanaim. There's a lot of big words here that are not in our language, so bear with me on this. And so what he did is he actually sent some messengers ahead, so that he can actually speak to Edom or Esau. So Esau, there in the country of Edom. Edom was the name of the country which Esau inevitably named after himself. And so verse 6, he said, and the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, we came to thy brother Esau, and he cometh to meet you with 400 men with him. Excuse me, sorry. Yeah, more 400 men with him. And so that being said, Jacob was scared. And so what he what he had them do is he had them separate. So he divided the people and the flocks and the herds into two different bands. So basically, should Esau take one of them, he still has the rest of them there, and the rest of them would survive. And so, um, verse 12, or excuse me, let's start verse 10. Um, he prayed to the Most High. So verse 9, starting at verse 9, he actually prayed to the Most High. He's like, hey, O Elohim of my father Abraham and Elohim of my father Isaac, and Elohim which has said unto me, return to thy country and to thy kindred, and I will deal well with thee. Am I not worthy of at least all the mercies of all the truth which thou hast shown unto thy servant? For with my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I am become two bands. And he said, deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he will come and smite me and the mother of my children. And thou hast said, I will surely do thee good and make thy seed as the sand of the sea. So inevitably, as he's praying to the Most High, he's calling the Most High on his word. He's saying, you already told me that you were gonna make me as numerous as the sand of the sea. And so as he's praying, he's calling the Most High on his word. He said, you were going to make me as numerous as the sand of the sea. So that's a part of his prayer. But now you got me here, and my brother is about to meet me, and he's saying, "Hey, Most High, I'm asking you to stand on your word now." Okay, and let's see. You fast forward to verse 24. Here we go. So he had actually sent his children, or his wives and children, um, away, and he's there alone. And he wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint. Now, understand that was not just any man. Okay, this is actually an angel of the Most High, and so he's literally wrestling this angel of the Most High in the form of a man. And you get to the morning, he said, "Let me go for this is the man slash the angel." He says, and he said, let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. And he said unto him, what is thy name? And he said, Jacob, or Yaakov. And he said, this is the man he was wrestling. Thy name shall no more, or thy name shall be called no more Yaakov, but Yasharel, or Israel. Okay, so, and that's what he's saying. He says, for as a prince for as a prince hast thou power with Yah and men, and hast prevailed. And so, or with Elohim and men, and thou hast prevailed. And so here's what he's saying. It's like, going back to what I said with Abraham. Notice that now he has been given a new purpose. He has been given a new name. He is no longer Yaakov, but Yasharel. So at this point, his name is now changed. And going forward, that's what and inevitably that's where the name of Israel, or Yasharel, comes from, is by the father. And father as in Jacob. So he is the father of all of his sons. So his name is Yasharel, and that's where the name of the nation comes from, or Israel. And so that's where we are. So and this is when his name was changed. Okay, so um, so now here's something, just a small little tidbit that kind of got me. Something that just I was not aware of, but here we go. Therefore, the children of Yasharel eat not of the sinew which shrank, which is upon the hollow of the thigh, up unto this day, because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh and the sinew that shrank. So inevitably the hip joint. And so what it's saying, from that day forward, they no longer eat um, the inevitably the what is it called? With chicken we just call gristle, but it's n- not tendons, but not ligaments. I can't think of what it's called. Um, um, I'll remember it later on, but it's a part of the body. Um, which that part is less important. Um, but it's actually going to be bugging me until I think of it. But either way, but let's go ahead and go to the next chapter because that part is less important. Um, so at this point, again, Jacob is still scared, but we're at that meeting point when he finally does meet Esau. Verse 4, it says, "And Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and excuse me. Yeah, and Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept." So all this fear that he had, and now it's time for them to meet up, and Esau is there and they're embracing. So inevitably, uh, the Most High took care of it. Uh, there's also some additional that is also in another book, but again, that's another piece that um, that's not what this study is for. So let's go to verse 9. And Esau said, so inevitably, Jacob, in order to calm Esau down, he's like, hey, he's wanting to give him all these gifts. And in some of the previous verses, and you'll see verse 9, he said, Esau said, "I have enough, brother. Keep what thou hast to thyself." And Jacob said, "Nay, I pray thee, if thou hast found grace in my sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face, as though I had seen the face of Elohiym, and thou wast pleased with me." And this is them going back and forth. He's like, "No, keep what you got," and Jacob trying to. But now after they met each other, they journeyed, or they went away. Jacob or Esau to his house, and Jacob journeyed to Sukkoth, uh, ver, verse 17, and built him a house and made booths for his cattle, or shelters for his cattle. Actually, there's a feast for that as well. Feast for that Sukkoth. There that actually eventually becomes, there's a feast day that ends up being named after that. But literally, that word just means house, or sometimes referred to as tents or shelters. So as you see, that Sukkoth here. Booths. Let's see. Let's see what other definitions. In other verses, you'll see it referred to as tents, which let's see, and pitched in Sukkoth. Well, but either way it goes. Inevitably, that's what that is tents, shelters. Um, in this case, he's referring for his cattle. He built a shelter for his cattle. So, um, and where are we at? I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next chapter. Okay, this chapter kind of goes through um, Okay. So this gets into Jacob's children and a another piece. So um they are in Shechem, a land in Canaan. So um I'm sorry. They are in the land of Canaan. Okay, and Shechem, he's the son of um a very important man in the town, by the name of Hamor. And so basically he really liked one of Jacob's daughter Dinah, and inevitably took advantage of her. Well, then after taking advantage of her, um, he loved her so much he wanted uh, him to then make Dinah his wife. And so that's what he said. He said to his father, "Go ahead and get this damsel to wife." And so um, Jacob heard about this, that this man had defiled his daughter, and his sons were in the field, and he kind of held his peace until his boys came back. So inevitably, um, Hamor came unto Jacob to talk to him about getting his daughter for his son to marry. And inevitably, what happened is his sons uh, basically, out of deceit, said, "It's like, okay, well, here's what you can do. In order to marry our sister, um, you need to be circumcised like our men." And so that's what they did. Um, and we're at verse 13. Says, "And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor's father deceitfully and said, because he had or basically he said because they had defiled Dinah, their sister, and so we can't do this thing um, with them in uncircumcised. So inevitably, you have to circumcise all your males." And so that's what they did, is they circumcised all their males. So now, what happened next? They all the men in the land were decided to go get circumcised, and verse 25, "And it came to pass on the third day, when they were sore, the two sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, each took a sword, went into the city, and killed all the men." Inevitably, it's like, you messed over our sister, we coming after you. And so um, Jacob originally, um, Jacob was kind of ticked. Um, yeah, Jacob was originally not happy about this fact. And so, verse 30, he said to Simeon and Levi, "Ye have troubled me to make me shrink upon the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites. And I being few in the number, they shall gather themselves together against me and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house." And here's their response. They said, "Should he deal with our sister as with the harlot?" And to be honest, in that, the Most High was actually glorified. And it also, that's something else that it talks about in another book, to where we can touch on that another day. So, that being said, so at this point, um, let's see. Let's touch on some notes in here. Oh, verse 2. Actually, you know what? I think there might have been something in the previous chapter. Genesis chapter 35. Let's go there real quick. Or 34. Oh no, that was it. Okay. But um oh, here we go. No, 35 verse 1. Here it is. This is what I was looking for. And Yah said to Jacob, arise, go up to Bethel and dwell there, and make there an altar to Yah, um, unto Yah that appeared unto thee when thou hadst fled it from the face of Esau thy brother. And Yaakov said unto his household, and to all that were with him, put away the strange gods that are among you, and be clean, and change your garments. Okay, so ergo, I don't know, somewhere between when he left Laban and now, he realized that some folks had um, kept some of Laban's gods. And basically, what he's saying here, he's like, "Hey, uh, time to get rid of all of that." And so, what he did with them is he hid them under an oak there in Shechem. And so, um, and verse 5, now as they left, the terror of the Most High was upon the cities that were around them, and they did not pursue after the sons of Yaakov. So inevitably, um, the Most High had worked his will, and these folks were not coming after him. So when he left, um, and for that, I would love to get into some details on that one, but that one's for another study. And here we are. Yah said unto him, here we go, verse 10. Yah said unto him, thy name is Jacob, thy name shall no more be called Yaakov, but Yasharel shall be thy name. And he called his name Yasharel. So again, confirming what his angel had previously told him. He's like, hey, you ain't Jacob no more, you're now Yasharel. Okay. And again, one thing that I pointed out in the previous video, that changing of the name is symbolic. It's symbolic of literally him setting his purpose upon that person. So that's what you see right here. So, and it came to pass. Oh, so now, verse 16. Verse 16, and they journeyed from Bethel, and there was but a little way to come from Ephrath. Rachel travailed, and she had hard labor. And it came to pass, when she was in labor, that the midwife said unto her, fear not, for thou hast a son for thou shalt have this son also. And it came to pass, as her soul was departing, for she died, that she called his name Benoni, but his father called him Benjamin. And so Rachel died in childbirth with her final son Benjamin. So the two sons that Rachel actually bore were Benjamin and Joseph. So um, Jacob's two youngest sons, Benjamin and Joseph, were both born by Rachel, and on the final one, she actually died in childbirth. So now, in that, this piece right here is somewhat important. Okay. Oh, sorry. Let's see. Where is it at? Okay. I thought it actually went into a little bit more detail as to the reason for this, which there is no reason, but no good enough reason. But Genesis 35:22, it says, and it came to pass when Yasharel dwelt in the land, that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine. And Yasharel, Jacob, heard it. And so Reuben, his oldest son, went and laid with Jacob's concubine, which is a little bit lower than a wife, but still his wife. And inevitably, that was let's just say it's a big deal. I mean, it's you laying with your father's woman, wife, concubine, either way. That is a big deal. In reality, he with the law, he likely probably could have killed Reuben for that, and he would have been within his right. But that's a big piece, and you'll see how that affects things later on. And likely in next week's teaching. So, but that is a piece that I wanted to touch on today. So it goes through all of the sons, and verse 28. This is also where we lose out on Isaac. It says, "And the days of Isaac were 100 or were 104 score years." So 180 years. So a score is 20 years. So four score is 80. So 180 years is how long that Isaac lived. And now this next chapter gets into Esau and his descendants. One piece that I want to touch on is starting at verse 15. Okay. So you'll see the sons of Esau, but verse 15, here's what you see. These were the dukes of Esau. The dukes of Esau. That's something that let's just say Esau's sons, they're the only people in the Bible. The descendants of Esau are the only people in the Bible where you hear referred to as duke. That piece I may touch on that in another video, but that is something to take note of, is how only the sons of Esau were called dukes. And again, this is a full study of the Bible. If you can show me somewhere else that is, correct me if I'm wrong. But the only place that I've ever seen the word duke referred to as to anyone's descendant was a child of Esau. So that's a little nugget to let's just say tuck away. So let's see where we are. Where are we? Verse 28. Actually, let me. That's really where I will leave off on chapter 36. But that comes into Jacob's or Esau's descendants. So 37. So now we are here to Joseph, okay, and the life of Joseph is where things start taking shape as to some things that happen later on in the story of Yasharel. So here we are. So Joseph is 17 years old at this point, and you'll see it in verse 2. He's 17 years old. He's feeding the flock with his brothers, and he was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto his father an evil report. Otherwise, he told on his brothers. Okay, so now Yasharel, his father, or Jacob, or Israel, it says here, similar to what you saw with Jacob and Esau. Certain parents love certain siblings more. And he said, here's what he said. He says, Yasharel loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. So he showed favoritism upon Joseph. Um, Likely had something to do. Yes, it was the son of his old age, but also it was the son of Rachel. Remember that Rachel only had two sons. Rachel was the one that he loved, and Rachel had two sons. One was Joseph. So that being said, um, of course, you as siblings, you see that one child is um, shown favor to. What does that create? It creates jealousy, and that's what happened right here. And it says, and his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, and so they hated him. Surprise, surprise, and could not speak peaceably unto him. So, and he dreamed a dream. Now, this dream is very important. Let's look at it real quick. He said, "We were binding sheaves in the field. This is corn, and my sheaf arose and stood upright, and behold, your sheaves stood round about, and made um, obeisance to my sheaf. Inevitably, they bowed to his sheaf." And so let's look at that word obeisance. Stood right, upright, and made obeisance. Look at this word. To bow down, to depress, to bow down, prostrate oneself. So yes, so but that's what it's saying. So his sheep or his sheaves of corn bowed down to Joseph's, or their sheaves of corn bowed down to Joseph's. And behold, and his brethren said unto him, shalt thou indeed reign over us, or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet more for his dream. So they already didn't like him because he was favorite. Now the dude is dreaming that he's gonna rule over them. And again, he's the youngest. So again, that's something else that's a big deal because yeah, it's like in a normal situation, the youngest is kind of the lowest when it comes down to rank. So it's like, okay, so you're the youngest, and we gonna bow down to you. Is that what you're saying? And so they ticked off, and so and he dreamed another dream. Inevitably, the same thing happened with um with the sun, moon, and the 11 stars bowing down to him. And so at this point, he told it to his father and to his brother. And in this case, Yaakov rebuked him, or Yasharel, Jacob or Israel. Um, and here's what he says: "What is it? What is it? What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow ourselves to thee upon the earth?" And again, his brothers envied him, but Jacob looked at this and he kind of took note. And so it's like, although he rebuked them, he kind of took note of what was said. So, um, so, um, so we fast forward, and um, now the brothers are actually working in the field, and their brothers are working in the field, and Daddy sends Joseph to go check on him, and so he's on his way there, um, and the brothers are saying it's like, hey, let's throw him in a pit, or well, first of all, he said, let's slay him and cast him into some pit, and we'll just tell Daddy that some evil beast came and killed him. Because again, they were in the middle of nowhere, and who was going to say anything otherwise? Now, 21, Reuben heard it, and um, and he said, "Hey, bro, hey, y'all, let's not kill him. We don't want to put that blood on our hands. But here's what we can do. We can go ahead and cast him into this pit, in the wilderness." And so, basically, Reuben, and it says it in this verse, he said, "Let's throw him in the pit because he's going to do this, and then come back and actually um, take him back to daddy. So um, Joseph gets there. They stripped off his coat, threw him down in the pit, and they sat down and ate bread. And while they were doing that, while he's down there in that pit, some Ishmaelites traders were walking by, and they were slave traders. And so they're like, you know what? There's no profit. And this is Judah saying this. He's like, what does it profit us to kill him and conceal his blood? Well, let's go ahead and just sell him to these Ishmaelites and make some money off of it. And so um, so they were they were passed by Midianite merchantmen, and pulled Joseph out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And the Ishmaelites brought him then to Egypt. Now, um, at this point, Reuben is not here, and as you see in verse 29, he returned the pit and saw that Joseph wasn't here. And at this point, he realized that it's messed up. Okay. Um, but here's now the cover up. So they took a goat and dipped the coat in blood, and basically went and told daddy that um that, kind of like they said, that some kind of evil beast has killed him, eaten him, and he's likely in little pieces right now, but they weren't able to find him. And so Jacob, as expected, he's mourning for his son Yasharel, or excuse me, for his son Joseph. So um, Joseph is in Egypt right now. This talks a little bit about Judah. So we'll come back to, or we'll talk future about future, but there's a significance on why Judah is talked about here. But let's go ahead and talk about this real quick here. Judah. Okay, so um, Judah had a son. Okay, we're on chapter 38. That's why okay, here we are. Verse 2. Judah saw there was a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua, and he took her and went into her, and she conceived and bare a son, and he called his name She conceived once again, called his name Onan, and yet once again conceived and bare a son, and called his name Shelah. And he was at Chizib when she bare him. And verse 7, Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Most High, and Yahuwah slew him. Like, hey, he's wicked. He ain't got no place here. Yahuwah killed him. So he took unto Onan, um, or sorry, Onan, his second son. He said, "Go into thy brother's wife and marry her, and raise up seed to thy brother." This was a custom. Okay, so if one brother died, the custom was for the next of kin, or the next brother, to take that brother's wife, so that inevitably, um, through inevitably that the seed that would be given would inevitably be go down as his brother's descendant. So this is his brother's wife. He said, take unto him and raise this up as a seed to thy brother. And so, here's what Onan said. He's like, he knew that the seed would not be his. So it came to pass, he went into him and he spilled it on the ground. So inevitably, he he had sex with her, but um, instead of going inside of her, he did it to the side, because he didn't want to inevitably his brother his own seed. And so, as I said in verse 38 and 10, again, um, this was custom. This was what they were supposed to do, and so this and the thing which he had did what displeased the Most High, and wherefore he slew him also. So now this is two sons of Judah, two of his three sons, and he's like okay, yeah, this is something up with this girl. And so here's where he at. Here's where he is. Verse 30 and 11. And Yehuda or Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain a widow at thy father's house until Shelah, my son, be grown. For he said, lest a peradventure he die also, as his brethren did. And Tamar went and dwelt in thy father's house. So inevitably, he said, let him grow up, and when he grows up, I'll send him back to you. That's his words. So, um, where are we at? So, at this point, Judah's wife died. He's mourning. Um, and someone told Tamar that your father-in-law goes to Timnah to shear a sheep. And so basically what she did, she took her widow's clothing off and covered herself with a veil and wrapped herself and sat in an open place which is on the way to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah was grown, but she was not given unto him or unto him the wife. So inevitably the son was grown, and like Judah said, hey, when he's grown, I'll give him to you as a husband, but he did not honor his word. So Timnah's like, okay, well, here we are. So she dressed as a harlot or a prostitute, and he saw her, and again, he hasn't been with, he doesn't have his wife anymore, and hadn't been with a woman for a while, and he's lustful. Did not know that it was her because she had covered her face, like it said in verse 15. And inevitably, he propositioned her, and again, not knowing it's her, and said, "How much you cost?" He's like, he said, "I'll send you a kid from the flock, and what would and he said, what will you give me for a pledge until you send me that kid?" And he said, and he gave him his signet, or she told him to give him his signet and his bracelets and his staff as a pledge, so that when he comes back, or that pretty much as a pledge that he's going to come back with what he said he's going to come back with. So he gave it to her, and she conceived by him. So inevitably, um, you know, she was pregnant. Well, go fast forward. Um, some folks told Judah about his daughter-in-law. Like again, he didn't realize who it was because she was dressed like a prostitute. And he says, somebody told about his daughter-in-law, that she was pregnant, and um, fast forward. Well, at this point, this is talking about when he went back and couldn't find her. But where are we at? Verse 26. Oh, verse 24. Here we are. Yeah. Um, it was told to Judah that Tamar, his daughter, hath played the harlot, and also, behold, she is with child by whoredom. And Judah said, bring her forth, and let her be burnt. Okay? Because she was supposed to be marrying his son, or his youngest son. And so, and here's what happened next. When she was brought forth, when she was brought forth, she sent to her, or she sent to her father-in-law, by the man who these are, I am with child. And she said, discern, I pray thee, whose are these? The signet and bracelets and staff. And so inevitably, and you'll see in Leviticus, but by the law, inevitably, um, not only is she supposed to be killed, but also the man that would have slept with her. But here's what he says: Judah acknowledged, or Yehuda is his actual name, acknowledged him and said, "She hath been more righteous than I, because I gave her not to Shelah my son, and he knew her again no more." So inevitably, this was seen as righteousness, and um, as Judah said, is like, hey, even more righteous than I, because again, she had promised him to her youngest son. He didn't do it, um, and her the line was actually continued through her, and so that's a big piece of um the line of Judah, and later on we'll get to the genealogy that goes from actually him to David, but we're not going to cheat. So, but now there was that chapter for Judah. Now we're back with Joseph. Now he's in Egypt. He's in Egypt in the hand of a rich man by the name of Potiphar. Okay. So he was sold, verse 1, to Potiphar's house. He was the captain of the guard. And so um, eventually, as Joseph was there, inevitably, as you can expect, with all of Yaakov's kids and Abraham and Isaac, where they were, they prospered. And so, but that being said, Potiphar's wife saw Joseph look good, as it says in verse 6. Joseph was a goodly person and well favored, and so inevitably she tries to seduce him. And verse 7, it says, his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, "Lie with me." And of course, as Joseph um, had that conviction, he's like, "Hey, behold, my master, um, my master's wotteth not what is with me in the house, and he hath not, and he hath committed all that he hath to my hand." Um, Inevitably, he's saying it's like, hey, he's given me everything, but you, his wife, he's like, hey, you, his wife, I cannot do this wickedness and sin against the Most High, sin against Yah and his God. She And so basically what she did is there was a time that he was in the house and she was the only one with him, and she was slick and and inevitably tried to force her way up on him, and he ran. Well, verse 12, when he ran, she caught his garment, and while she's holding his garment, he ran and literally ran out of his clothes with it in her hand. And so um once she did that, she called the men of the house and said um, that Jacob inevitably tried to rape her. Well, Potiphar inevitably throws him in jail. He's in jail. Verse 19, um, while he's in jail, he ends up running into, well, even in jail, he prospered. So while in jail, he was actually even raised up to where he was trusted upon by the prison official. But now, speaking of dreams, um, there were a couple men that were in there with him, and he came to them in the morning, and both of them were sad because both of them had a dream. Because both of them had dreams. Now these men were officers of Pharaoh, and they were put in jail while Pharaoh had while he was investigating some things. And so both of them had dreams. And so um, he talked to Pharaoh's cupbearer, and um, he originally interpreted his dream. And well, as he says, Joseph said unto them, "Do not all interpretations belong to God?" So Elohim, and he's saying, he's like, "Hey, when it comes down to these dreams, I don't have the ability to interpret them, but by the Most High." And in submission to the Most High, he was actually given the interpretation. And so, um, and the chief butler told his dream to Yosef and said to him in the dream, "Behold, there was a vine before me. There were three branches, and it was though it was budded, and the blossom shot forth, and clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and the cup in Pharaoh's hand." Well, basically, Joseph's interpretation was that inevitably 3 days, Pharaoh's going to raise you up, and you're going to go back to your service of Pharaoh. The the other man, he's like, "Ooh, hey, that was I like what he said." Well, um, then he told Joseph his dream. Well, his dream was not quite so nice as the other dream was, and he told him what the deal was. And he says, um, to that interpretation, he says, "Well, like your buddy, 3 days, Pharaoh's going to lift up your head as well. But he's in this case, he's actually going to lift your head up off thee. Inevitably, he's going to behead you, and he's going to hang your head on a tree and let the birds eat the flesh off of you." And that's what the interpretation of his dream was. Sure enough, 3 days, um, everything that he said came to light. And he told him, and Joseph said, "It's like, hey, um, remember me when you go to Pharaoh, or remember me. Hey, get me out of here." um, and so, but when it came down to it, the chief baker or the chief butler didn't remember Joseph and forgot about him up until it was time, because now the butler had been going about his business, but now we're at a point to now Pharaoh himself is having a dream, and um and couldn't sleep. So he talked to everybody about his dreams. Nobody could interpret it, but um in verse 9, the chief butler finally remembered Joseph. He's like, "Hey, um, you remember back in the day when you was mad at me? You put me in jail? Well, in jail there was this one dude that pretty much told me my dream. I had a dream, and there was one person who was able to interpret it. So, hey, you should talk to him." Well, that's what happened. Pharaoh sent for him. He shaved himself and went to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh gave him his dream. And just like he said to the butler, "It is not me, but Yah shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace." Pharaoh told him his dream. Actually, it was two dreams. He told both of them. And here's what Joseph says. He's like, basically, the two dreams are really one and the same. Basically, Yahuwah has showed you what he's about to do. The seven good kind, which are cows, and 7 years are 7 years, as well as the good ears, or as well as the good ears of corn are also 7 years. The dream is one. The seven thin and ill favored kind that came up, and the seven empty ears blasted by the east wind are 7 years of famine. And so basically, he's telling you that there's going to be 7 years of plenty, which you guys are going to have a bunch of crop and so on and so forth. Well, that's going to be followed by 7 years of famine, to where you're not going to have anything. And so basically, what you should do is hire a wise man to be over. So in those 7 plenty years, that you can actually put some away to last you the 7 years of famine. And inevitably, Pharaoh's like, "Hey, well, you're the only person that was able to tell me this dream. Then I'm putting you in charge." And so at this point, Pharaoh makes him literally second in command in Egypt, only to him. So, um, so that being said, and in this time he also had his two sons. Well, at this point now, um, the famine didn't just hit Egypt; it also hit Canaan. And so, Yasharel or Israel or Jacob, um, his father's still living in Canaan. So he actually sent his brothers because they were running out of food as well. So he's like, "Hey, I hear Egypt got food. Hey, let's take some money and go up to Egypt and let's buy food so that we don't starve." Well, they get to Egypt. He sent all the brothers except for Benjamin originally, and so um, they came down and they get down there, and Joseph saw his brethren, knew who they were, but of course made himself, but they didn't recognize him, and so they came down to Canaan to buy food. So now remember that dream, and look at this verse. Um, Joseph comes up to them, and what did they do? They bowed themselves before him with their faces to the earth. Now you remember in the earlier chapter what his dream was, that his brothers would bow down to him. And now here in chapter 42, what is happening? His brothers are bowing down to him. So, um, so, uh, so um, now fast forward. Um, Again, at this point, Joseph knew who they were. They didn't know who he was. So he filled their. So what happened is, um, he called them spies, and yeah, he called them spies, and inevitably, because of course they didn't know who he was. But he's like, "Hey, you guys are spies. You guys are not here to buy stuff. You guys are spies." And um, inevitably says, "Okay, well," and of course they protested. It's like, "Hey, no, we just trying to um, take care of our people." Well, he's like, "Well, okay, if you're not spies, prove that you're not spies." And basically, he said, "Okay, well, leave." Okay, and actually, he had pointed out, he had asked um, prior to accusing them of being spies. Um, he had asked them, who they were and about their family, and inevitably they revealed that they have a younger brother. Well, which he of course knew this, but um, he said, he's like, "Okay, well, if you're not spies, go fetch your youngest brother, and while you're going, I'm gonna keep one of your brothers back." And so he actually kept his brother Simeon. And so they kept Simeon. They kept Simeon back, and it's like, "Okay, now I'll send you with your food, but uh, don't come back to me without your youngest brother." Well, of course, Joseph knew who Joseph knew who this was, who they were. They also knew who their youngest brother was, and this is his full brother. Okay, so same mama and daddy. So he had his only brother of his mother Rachel, and he was young last time he had seen him. He was 17 years old. Okay, so that being said, he sent them. He sent them away. But when he sent them away, what he also did is he actually um, filled their sacks with corn, but also sent them back with their money. So inevitably, um, they got the corn for free. Well, they left and realized that their money was still with them, and they're like, "Oh shoot!" He had already called a spy, or he'd already called the spies, and somehow we got our money. We in trouble. And what they're talking about is like Reuben saying, this is Reuben saying, it's like, didn't I tell y'all not to sin against Joseph? Because now the Most High is actually repaying us for messing up with Joseph. It's like, and so at this point they're like, oh shoot, we messed up. The Most High is paying us for Joseph and what they had done all those years ago when they were young. Okay, so they left. Simeon's held hostage in that as they went back to Canaan. Well, um, and they tell Yaakov or Jacob, they tell Daddy about this, and um, and he's kind of ticked. He's like, "Why'd y'all even tell him you had a little brother?" And basically, um, they're like, "Hey, we didn't know he was gonna do this. Um, yeah, we didn't know he was gonna do this. It was like, hey, we he just asked us about who we were and about our family, and we just answered him. We didn't know that he was going to use that against us later on. And so so inevitably they let time pass and ate up and eventually ate up all the food that they originally got the first time, and they ran out of food again. And still at this point, Egypt is literally the only place in the world that had, yeah, the only place that actually had food. So inevitably, they were going to have to go back to Egypt. And so, and so, basically, they were saying it's like, inevitably, if you're going to go back, or well, he told them it's like, hey, y'all gonna have to go back to Egypt again. Well, um, they said it's like, hey, we can't go back to Egypt without Benjamin. Okay, and verse 5, he says, this is Judah talking. He's like, well, he said, yeah. He's like, hey, but if thou wilt not send him, we will not go down. For he said to us, you should not see my face except your brother be with you. And so, and this is the part where he said it's like, why'd you tell the man you had a brother? And this is where Judah's saying it. He's like, he just asked us straightly of our state and of our kindred, saying, is your father yet alive? Have ye another brother? And we just told him accordingly to what he asked. And we didn't know what he was going to do with it. And so, and basically, Judah told him, he's like, hey, um, I'll be surety for you, Daddy. Like I will take personal responsibility for Benjamin. And so, send them with me, and we'll rise and go. They that we might live and might not die. Because again, they were there was no more food. Yeah. And inevitably Jacob was like, well, we don't have choice. We don't have a choice. Go ahead and send him, and if he dies, I'll just if Benjamin dies, then I'll just go down to the grave, just grieving. It's like I'll just die of just sadness, and that's so he sent them in protest. And so now, they took what they had, they went back to Egypt. And so, so now they get back there, verse 16, and he sees them, and at this point, he invites them into his house. And so, um, and to be honest, they're scared because they remembered that last time they were here, they left with their money. And so, they're in the house. In verse 20, they're all nervous. It's like, okay, they're gonna speak up. Okay, like, hey, talking to one of his servants. He's like, "Hey, we came down the first time. We really were intending to buy food. Um, and hey, when we came to the end, we opened our sacks, and somehow our money was still there. It was totally unintentional. So what we did is, hey, I don't know how we got it, but it was there. And so, and he said, it's like, hey, you good, man? Fear not. It was it was the Elohiym of and Yahuwah of your father has given you this that treasure. I had your money. You good? Um, and he brought Simeon out. So, so Simeon was good, and he sat them down for dinner, and he literally sat them down in age order. And so, and they were that was something that they noticed, but it was something interesting to them. And so, so he looked up, saw his younger brother, and he said, Yahuwah, or he said, Elohim, be gracious unto thee, my son. And actually he had to leave because this is the first time he had seen his brother since he was a lot younger. And he actually literally started crying. And he comes back and he got his stuff together, comes back, and as I said, set them in age and or in age order. But the he sat down and gave Benjamin 5 times as much as they did. 5 times as much food, 5 times as much drink. And from there they just kicked it. But um when he sent them on, he did it again, but this time he gave them all of their money. But what he also did is he told his servant to put his silver cup in there. Okay. And at this point, because he was um inevitably testing them as well. Okay, so they left, and he sent them away, but this time he sent his servant after him and told him what to do and what to say. Um, and um, he went, and the servant went unto him, or servant chased him down, and he's like, "Hey, which one of y'all stole my master's cup?" They're like, "Hey, none of us did." Hey, whoever you find it with, then may 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 he pay the penalty. Well, not only did he put the cup with them, but it was with Benjamin, and so and so s- he searched, started at Reuben, went all the way down, and found it in Benjamin's sack. And at this point, they are they are beside themselves because at this point, um, they knew that they were in trouble, and especially the person that they had assured Daddy that they were going to bring back. Took him back to Joseph's house, and he basically told him, "It's like, hey, um, basically told him, it's like, hey, you know, hey, the rest of y'all can leave. He stays with me." And at this point, um, uh, they, Judah speaks up. He's like, um, hey, we have a father who's an old man, and this is a child of his old age, a little one, and his brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother, and his father loves him. And he said to us, bring him down to me that I may set, or he Joseph said, it's like, bring him down to me that I might set eyes on him. And we saith unto my Lord, this lad cannot leave his father, for it if he should leave his father, his father would die. And let's see, so they're telling the story of how they got up there. We get to um, verse 33. He said, take me instead. This is what he's saying. I pray thee, let thy servant abide instead of the lad and the bondman unto my Lord, or unto my Lord, or Adon. He's saying, Judah's saying, instead of him, take me. For how can I even go back to daddy without him with me? Like, take me instead of him. I do not want to see the evil that is upon my father. And at this point, Joseph just broke down and he cried. Um, and so when he came back, um, he revealed himself. He's like, "Hey, y'all, I'm Joseph. Um, is daddy still alive?" And his brothers couldn't even speak because, as it says, they were troubled at his presence. They knew what they did. He said, "Come on over here, y'all. I'm Joseph, the brother you sold into Egypt. But here," he's like, "Hey, don't be grieved nor angry with yourselves." Because here's what he said. Here's what Joseph noticed. He said, Yah did send me before you to preserve life. He sent me down here for a purpose. He's like, y'all meant this for bad, but the Most High meant this for good. He sent me down here for a reason because he knew this famine was coming. He knew back then when y'all was acting a fool that this was going to happen. If I had not come down here when y'all were hungry, y'all just wouldn't have nothing to eat. And it's like there is so much to this. It's like these dudes had really messed him over. His own brothers had really messed him over. But Yah had so much more in plan and in store for them. If they hadn't have done this, if this hadn't have happened to Joseph, he would not be in this position of where he was now. And to be honest, see, this is one of the stories of the Most High's grace. Oftentimes, stuff that happens in our lives, and see, now I'm just talking because and this is part of my passion for the Most High. Stuff that happens in our lives that seem terrible at the moment, seem terrible in the midst of things. Even other folks may have even meant it for bad. Um, we'll see it further on down in the New Testament, in the New Testament, where it says, "For all things work together for the good of those that love Yah and that are called according to His purpose." In this case, Joseph was called to the Most High, or was called for a purpose in the Most High. And this entire thing, although it was bad at the moment, the Most High meant it for good, and He worked it for good, and that's what He's saying. And He realized this. And so basically, what He did is He had them go back, tell Daddy, he's like, "Hey, brother's here, brother's alive." Um, he wept with his brother Benjamin, sent him back, and sent them for Daddy. They went back to Canaan, which is where he was, and Jacob took all that he had, moved him to Egypt. And it talks about all the people that came with him, and so inevitably, Joseph, what he did is he actually sent them um, to in front of Pharaoh, and uh, had this plan kind of ahead of time. He's like, "Hey, um, they know you guys are shepherds. Um, basically, go to Pharaoh and tell him this. Tell him who you are. Tell him that you're shepherds, and inevitably, he wanted them to go to Goshen, and that's where they ended up going. So, and as we get into 46, 46 is talking a lot more about his journey to Egypt, Yaakov or Jacob's journey to Egypt. And 47 is talks about inevitably how they ended up in Goshen. It says Joseph came and told Pharaoh, he said, "My fathers and brethren and their flocks and herds and all that they have are come out of the land of Canaan, and behold, they are in the land of Goshen." He said, and he took his brethren, um, some of his brethren, even 5 men, and presented them unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto his brethren, "What is your occupation?" And he said unto Pharaoh, "The servants are shepherds, both we and also our fathers." Now, here's the thing, and it talks about it later on. Uh, Shepherds are looked down upon at by the Egyptians, and so case in point, um, how and why he sent them over to Goshen to actually man the flocks of Pharaoh's. So that's where also Pharaoh's flocks were, and so he's like, "Hey, send them here, and they can take care of your flocks," and that's what they did. So inevitably, because of this, Yaakov and all of his family were blessed because of his son, because of his son Joseph, and even out of all of the all out of everything that he went through, sold into slavery, accused of rape, accused of trying to rape his master's wife, thrown in prison, only to be raised to second in command of all Egypt, only second to Pharaoh himself. And um, so yeah, and so now what? So now famine's all in the land, and here's what you actually start to see, because of the blessing of age, because of the blessing of Joseph. Not only are Jacob and his family are blessed, but also Egypt is blessed, the nation that they were dwelling in. And this actually becomes a theme that you see um, throughout the children of Yasharel and throughout the children of the promise. Wherever they are, the people that are there are also blessed. Case in point, why Laban did not want Jacob to leave. Okay, yeah, Laban didn't want Jacob to leave because he was being blessed. So now they're in Egypt, and Egypt is about to get rich. Okay, and Pharaoh is about to get rich. Okay, the famine is going on, and not only are people from other nations coming about and coming to Egypt, but the people of the land of Egypt. Okay, and so basically they had already come to Jacob and already gave them their possessions to buy bread. Well, at this point, look what happened. It's like so originally, um, Pharaoh's wealth increases because, as you see, verse 15 and 16. And when the money fell out of the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph, said, "Give us bread. And why should we die in your presence? For the money faileth." And Jacob and Joseph said, "Give your cattle, and I will give for you your cattle if money fail." So they even gave their cattle and gave their flocks, and um, and for their cattle and flocks, um, they gave and it was given to Pharaoh. And so and eventually, after their cattle and flocks were all gone, and they were still out of food. Here's what happens. Watch this. When that year was ended, they came unto him, and the second year said unto him, "We will not hide it um, from my Adonai. How is how that our money is spent? My Adonai also hath herds of cattle. There is aught not left in the sight of my Adonai, but our bodies and our lands." And so here's what they did. It says, "Wherefore shall we die in thine eyes, both we and our land? But buy us buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land shall be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed that we may live and not die, and the land be not desolate." So inevitably, even the Egyptians sold their land and themselves to Pharaoh. So they literally served Pharaoh so they can eat. So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. For the Egyptians sold every man his field because the famine prevailed over them. So the land became Pharaoh's. So even the Egyptians were servants unto Pharaoh. All the land was given to Pharaoh, and all pretty much everything was given to Pharaoh, um, from Egypt and the lands around. So um, the wealth of Egypt was great because of that. So that is something to think about as in weeks to come, especially when it comes to uh, the exodus out of Egypt, because again, you see now where where Egypt's wealth came from. All of Egypt's wealth came because of Joseph. Well, they had stuff, but a big piece that Egypt got real big in this time of Joseph, and they were greatly blessed by the Most High because of Joseph. So that's something to think about. Now, as we go forward, let's see. Um, in Yasharel or Israel or Jacob, same person. Um, as he gets older, and as you've seen as the custom of his fathers as well, um, Abraham and Isaac, as they got older and getting closer to death, they blessed their sons, and that's actually what's happening here. So you actually get to see all of the brothers had a blessing that was given unto them. Now, when it came down to Joseph, instead of blessing him, he actually blessed his two sons. And actually, you see this as excuse me, as time goes on, like each son was given a tribe, but when it came down to Joseph, his tribe was actually given to his son. So there was really never a tribe of Joseph. There was a tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. So even when the land is split up amongst Joseph's sons later on, you'll see that, and it starts right here, that their land is split up into the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, and that's Genesis 48 and 5. And now thy two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, which were born to thee in Egypt, before I came unto thee in Egypt, are mine. As Reuben and Simeon, they shall be mine. And so instead of blessing, or instead of looking at them as grandsons and as Joseph's sons, he's like, these will be to me as if they were born of directly to me. And so he blesses Ephraim and Manasseh as he would have blessed Joseph, or as he would have blessed one of the other sons. And so inevitably, that's this is where that comes about. And he says, um, and thy issue which thou had begettest after them shall be thine, and shall be called after the name of their brethren in their inheritance. So again, they get the inheritance as direct sons of Yaakov or Jacob, and so or Yasharel or Israel. So and that's where this happens, and so that's something to look for. But now here's something that's significant, and so he took them both, Ephraim in his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand towards Israel's right hand, and brought them near unto him. And Yasharel stretched out his right hand and laid it upon Ephraim's head. Now here's the thing: Ephraim was the younger, and again, it is customary to for the older to get the majority of the inheritance. Now, similar to what you saw with Jacob and Esau, it was the younger one that also got that blessing. And here's what's happening here. Um, Joseph thought it was on accident. So um, laid it upon Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and left his left hand upon Manasseh's head, guiding his hand winningly, for Manasseh was the firstborn. And he blessed Joseph and said, Yah, before whom my fathers Abraham, Isaac did walk, the Elohiym which led me all the days of my life, the angel which redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, and let my name be upon them, and let the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude upon the earth. And when Joseph saw his father laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, it displeased him, and he held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head unto Manasseh's head. Joseph said unto his father, Not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put thy right hand upon his head. But his father refused to do so, and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But truly his younger brother shall be the greater, and he and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. So again, passing similarly the blessing that was given to him and that was given to his father and his father. And so again, this is something that you see that is repeated and confirmed through the nation. So, but that being said, let's see, and I think that is the last of the chapters for this week. Let me go back to the plan. I think 48. Oh, you know what? I jumped a week ahead. So I went got a little bit ahead of myself. So this is, I guess that is a treat on next week's lesson. But but that being said, um, but that's where we are. So that's this week's lesson. So for next week, we will start on um well, for you, start on chapter 28 or chapter 48. We'll be going from chapter 48 to Exodus 21. So we now know how they got into Egypt, and now we get to see how they got out. So it'll be day 29 to day 36. So which will be Genesis chapter 48 all the way to Exodus chapter 21. So we get to see how they got into Egypt. We get to see how they were treated in Egypt, and we're going to get to see how they got out of Egypt in the time coming forward. So, but that being said, that's where we are for this week. Um, and uh, again, as always, I thank you all for joining me in this study. Um, Again, hopefully you read ahead, and so that come next week we can ask some questions. And to be honest, in reality, that is the purpose of this. Should you read ahead, you have questions, feel free to drop it in the comments of any of these studies. This week, for some reason, I'm thinking that I'm having some technical difficulties with some of the things not seeing correctly, but hopefully weeks to come I can get that corrected. But in general, if you do have questions, that is something that I welcome and love for this to be as much of a dialogue as possible, and really want this to be an inspiration for folks to seek out the Most High for themselves, and to read for themselves, and to get the fullness of the context as to what He wants of us, and really to get to know Him. That being said, I'll finish this out going to the Most High in prayer. So, Abba Yahuwah, we thank you once again for this time. We thank you for this lesson. We thank you for your word. We ask that um, as we read it, as we study it, as we go through this time, that um, that that this is not the end of it. That you use this to grow us, to get to know you better. Um, Not just to become theological geniuses and to just know a lot about the Bible in and of itself, but in reality, just for the opportunity to get to know you better. We thank you for all that you've done, all that you're doing. We ask your blessings as we go throughout um, this next week, as we go throughout reading your word and learning you better. We ask that you feed us through it. We ask that you grow us through it. And we thank you. We love you. We give you all the glory and all the honor and all the praise. In the mighty name of your son, Yahushua HaMashiach. Hallelujah. Um, so yeah, for those of you that did watch this, I thank you for following this. For more content, check out my channel, No Longer Vain, on YouTube. Um, each week, well, this is part of a longer series, and each week we will get into the word and breaking down what the Most High has to say through it. And with it, again, this intent is not just for me to teach a lecture, but in reality, if you have questions on what you've read, the intent of this is to ask it the following week. If you are coming in this week for the first time of this series, this is a part of a larger series. Again, called it's called Approved. This is week 5 of that series of a year-long study and a year-long reading of His Word. So if you're coming here, feel free to start at week 1, or you can start where we are as well and continue on. But again, you know that that's what my whole purpose in this is to encourage other folks to read His Word for yourself as well. That being said, if this has blessed you, please like it, please share with others. If it is if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel, No Longer Vain, on YouTube. And again, check it out for additional content. I thank you. Love you all. Be blessed.